What was the most disappointing part of the weekend? One, two, three. Lando.
I mean, for me, it was Lando, because that has really set the tone for the rest of the season in terms of
Yeah.
the way the championship's going.
I'll explain why I didn't say Lando instead, but yeah, you go because I
British,
think
British bias. Oh wait, they're both British.
well, I picked a Brit and another British situation, but yeah, um,
It now really does much feel like it's, and Nate wrote this in his piece on Sunday night, that it's Oscar
Oscars to
Piastri's to
lose.
lose. And yeah, you could see a situation when it was the points gap was at 9 points, or even if it had extended to 16, which is the way it would have gone if Lando had finished, where you see a situation where that could come back around. But now you're really thinking, okay, this is probably going to rely on something going wrong for Oscar along the way. Um, and yeah, that's the first time we've had that in this championship. And you know what? If the roles were reversed and it was Oscar who was that far behind Lando, you'd think you look back to Australia and the lost points there and how he did manage to over not quite as big a points gap, but he did manage to overhaul it. And you'd think, well, yeah, maybe there's a possibility there. But with Lando, it's going to be tough, and he's going to have to come out and push really hard,
It's gonna have to be
take a lot of
aggressive.
chances, yeah, take a lot of risks, and in doing that, that could just compound, the disappointment and the misery and the issues along the way, and the potentially the DNFs, and that's a risk that we're in. So in terms of just disappointments, that was my main one. I'll probably be accused of British bias for that, but more because I was so hopeful that we would get a championship that goes
Mhm.
right down to the wire. It may still go down to the final race if Lando can find 9 points over Oscar over 8 races. That sounds doable. But then, even though you're going into the final race, then Oscar will probably need just a handful of points to win. So, yeah, that was a big disappointment for me. Season,
Me too.
yeah.
Yeah, me too. Because I think we were just talking about it 2 weeks ago. Like we selfishly want it to go down to the last race, last lap of the season. Like that is the ideal situation. The only thing I think that makes me feel better about it, given what happened, is that it wasn't a mistake that was made by Lando. Yes, he was not in the lead. Like maybe he could have done things differently at various points throughout the weekend or whatever. But like this was a Mercedes issue. This was an engine failure. The same thing, because there have been some reliability issues, and I'll be honest, I don't know what this one was. I don't know how this one compares to some of the other ones we've seen throughout the season for both um Williams and Mercedes. um but this was a an engine failure. It was not driver doing. So there is always the chance that this happens to Oscar. I think I would have been far more disappointed if this was like a Lando mistake where he ran into the back of someone, where he took himself out. He was basically doing everything he needed to do to chase down Oscar. I just worry a little bit in terms of like the long term how he races. I agree with you, Laz. If this had happened to Oscar, they're just two different personalities. And I don't know if Lando has the same sort of like effort mentality to just go and do it and be aggressive and put it all on the line week in and week out to like make up the difference now.
yeah, and I think I think there's a lot to that, and I think it'll be interesting to see what Lando means when he says, I'm just going to go for it now and race," because I think
Yes.
there have been, you've both mentioned it, there's been moments when I think he's been found lacking in that. But what I will say with this is that, I mean, yeah, from the title race perspective, a bit of a disaster. But I think it does overshadow the fact that, to me, even before that engine failure, I was thinking to myself, I think Piastri is the guy that's going to win this championship. I felt that for a while. That weekend was the most perfect Piastri weekend we've seen so far. If you look at through practice, it looked
Yeah.
like Lando had the edge. Lawrence and I actually sat down with Zach Brown just to have a coffee on Saturday just before qualifying, and he said Lando's looked really strong. Like I think Lando's going to put it together. Piastri sometimes has done this season where it's almost like he builds up to Q3, nails pole, and then Lando got stuck in that fight. I mean, Max was amazing off the line. I thought it was so entertaining watching Max fight. But as soon as that happened, it was like Piastri's going to win this race. So there's two elements to this that are disappointing. Is one is it does look like it's handed the initiative to Piastri, but it's also handed the initiative, in my opinion, to the wrong guy to make it a fun championship. If that failure had been on Piastri's car, I feel like to that exact point that you made, he's the guy that you could see kind of coming back and overhauling that. It would have been slightly less deficit as well. And I just think Piastri's in such a good groove coming out of Zandvoort, and he's going to now to 2 races where he was super strong last year, Monza and then Baku. He obviously should have won Monza, did win Baku. If he wins both of those races, doesn't matter where Norris finishes. As far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much game over, barring, like you said, something crazy. So, I think we should still give Piastri the credit. As much as that was very sad to see on the Norris side of things, it already felt like a quite statement drive from Piastri, and I think it almost got lost a little bit because Norris went out. But he'd been chasing him. There'd been 3 restarts. Piastri had managed them all the same. I don't think he would have got past him at Zandvoort. So yeah, it did feel a little bit. I was actually down in the media pen, so I had no sound because I'd gone down to talk to Lewis. And basically, if a driver retires early, you've got to go down to the pen early because they get there before anyone else. And so we were watching it, and obviously, as the chaos unfolded, we were but you could hear the noise before we saw Lando slow down because obviously it elevated Max up to second, and all of us in the pen just kind of winced like, oh. And I've got to say, even the non-English journalists winced as well before you start saying there's a bunch of you English guys down there. I was the only Englishman down there, and everyone else was like, oh no, that sucks. So, it does show you that people do want this title fight to go to the end. And it just felt, it did feel like that was probably the moment that means it doesn't.